Everybody, I'm Dave with Growing the Home Garden. Today I am actually getting around to finally potting up my boxwood cuttings. Check out the rooting on that little guy right there. Now, so I'm out here with my daughter Olivia. Say hi, Olivia.
Hello.
And we are potting up quite a few of these things. If you want to take a look, check out that flat right there. Now that flat has got peat in the very bottom of it and sand on top. So the sand kind of keeps the peat down into it. And you can see how those roots have really enjoyed growing around the peat area. There to the bottom. So what we're doing next is that we are potting them into small pots that have a mixture of peat, mixed with pine bark shavings and compost, as well as what we call perlite. And perlite is this little substance right here. It looks a little bit like styrofoam. And it's a inert material that helps to create better drainage in the pods. So that's what we're using it for. We also mixed in some organic fertilizers and stuff. With ornamentals, you don't really need the organic because we're not actually going to be eating boxwoods. So I wouldn't recommend doing that. But you know, any fertilizer is going to be necessary to help spur some good growth on initially with these pots. So here you can see a really good example of how this technique worked. The sand was at the top, the peat was at the bottom. The roots grew right down into the peat area right there and formed really nice looking root systems. There's about 3 of these per cell in this flat that I was doing. And you note here it's probably about a 12 chamber flat, 12 cell flat. So you could probably, I mean, we might have 36 or so boxwood cuttings here that have rooted. They just did really well. So you can see here, this boxwood has got some really nice branching in the root system over there. It did fantastic. Just check that out. All over the place. Lots of different little threads coming out from it. But we've got a variety of different success rates here. This one doesn't have as many, but still has some nice healthy looking roots going. This one the same, not as many as the first one I just showed you, but a little bit more than that one. Now we did have some failures. This one right here, check this out. Look down here at the tip and you can see that the end of this, where the cutting end was, is actually turning black. So this one, and the foliage is green, so it kind of looks healthy from up above, but when you finally dig down into the plant, into the cell flat there, you see it's not going to work out. So some of these are not going to work out, but just check out the success that we did have. I'll go through and I'll do a count here in a minute, but we've got a lot of successfully rooted boxwood cuttings from one single little flat of plants. That's a 12 cell flat. And you know, after going through some of these, you can see where I put like 4 in a cell. And so we're getting quite a bit of return on our space. So we've finished potting these up here and you can check them out. They all look really good. And we did a final count. So out of that flat that had 12 cells in it, we were able to get a total of 46 successfully rooted cuttings. Now check those out. That is a lot of cuttings. Imagine you needing to do a hedge. This would get you what you need for that hedge quite cheaply. And if you go to the store and you were to buy all this stuff, all these boxwoods separately, even as small boxwoods, you're probably looking $8 to $10 for a pot. So just think of all that money we saved right there by making all these our own. Now one disadvantage, of course, is they're smaller. They're going to take a little bit more time to get to that size that you want them to be, but we've saved a lot of money in doing it. And if you got a little time before you actually need that hedge to be put in, do it this way. You can save a lot of money. Plus, if you wanted to, you could go and you could start selling these. You make a crop of this every year and you just keep cycling it through. I mean, that much space. That is a 1 cubic foot of space that we made 46 successfully rooted boxwood cuttings from. Think about that and what you can actually do with it. So my next step with these is I'm going to put them in a safe spot where they're going to be kind of out of the weather for the next few days, because we are actually supposed to get some really cold weather on Thursday, dipping back down in the 20s, which is not good for the rest of the plants that have already emerged, but you know, we'll do some covering and some protection for that. These I'll put in the greenhouse. I'm going to water them in really good, make sure that they have plenty of what they need. So what I'm going to do next, after I've let them set for about a week to 2 weeks or so, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to pinch the tips. And what that is going to do is that is going to shift the hormones back into these side branches and cause them to trigger growth and be more bushy. And that's what we want. We want boxwoods to kind of bush out and grow nice and thick and lush. We don't want them to be straight and tall. Like if you check this little cutting out right here, it's just a straight cutting here. It's got a tip here that we can pinch off, and once we do that, it'll shift off and it'll start branching from there. And that's how you develop some nice thick foliage on a boxwood, is to continually trim it and hedge it and trim off those end buds off of those branches. Now these are some cuttings that I did of boxwoods, the same boxwood tree that those cuttings are from. But this one is a little further along. This is probably another year of growth on this. And I'm going to come in here and I'm going to pinch these buds back here in a couple weeks and just encourage them to be nice and bushy. I need to get some more growth coming down on this part of the plant, which they'll bush out some more from these and, you know, really fill in a lot better. There's some different cuttings I did from a Korean boxwood, and you'll notice that bronzing that typically happens with boxwoods. That's perfectly normal. They will green up here, as this one over here is starting to do before too long. Once the cold temperatures are pretty much done with, they are starting to come back for the year. The Korean boxwoods tend to be a lot slower growing. They're a smaller plant in general. So I hope you found this video useful. Just wanted to kind of give you an update on what those boxwood cuttings that I did last year are looking like this year. I'm really late on planting them up. I had planned to do that in the fall, but it's okay. They really didn't get much more growth, and I only had 2 cuttings that did not make it, and that's really fantastic. Out of 48 potential boxwood cuttings, 46 of them rooted. That is a really high percentage rate. So you can do that too. Just follow the tips. I'm going to post a link in the description for the previous video on the boxwood, so you can head back there and check that out. And if you have any questions, drop them in the comments. Always happy to help you out. But hit the like button, subscribe. I really appreciate you doing that, and I'll catch you next time.